Grace woke before the sun, the world still quiet, the air heavy with the familiar scent of the small apartment she shared with her mother. She stretched her stiff limbs and listened. There was no movement from the couch where her mother slept most nights. That silence frightened her. "Mom," she whispered. Her mother stirred weakly, breath uneven, hand searching for something to hold on to. Grace rushed to her side, kneeling beside the couch. "Are you okay?" Grace asked. Her mother tried to smile but failed. Sweat lined her forehead. "It's just the pain again. It'll pass." It wasn't passing. It was getting worse. Grace pressed a hand to her mother's forehead, hotter than yesterday. Her mother worked long, stressful hours as an executive assistant to Ethan Cole, a billionaire CEO with a reputation for firing employees for the smallest mistakes. No one dared call in sick. No one dared come late. But today, her mother could barely move. "Don't you dare say you're going to work," Grace whispered. Her mother weakly tried to sit up, but her body refused to cooperate. She fell back with a painful gasp, eyes watering. Grace caught her. "Mom, stop trying. You can't go." "If I miss work," her mother whispered, voice trembling. "Ethan, Mr. Cole, he'll fire me. And we need—" "Mom," Grace said, firmer than she felt. "I'm going." Her mother stared at her, shocked.
Grace, no.
"That office is not a place for you. And Ethan, he's difficult. I'll manage." "You don't know what you're walking into," her mother warned. "He has standards. He has rules. Assistants quit or get fired every other month." "I just need to get through today," Grace said softly. "Just today. Please let me help." Her mother's hand trembled as she touched Grace's cheek. "You shouldn't have to do this." Grace forced a smile. "I'm my mother's daughter. I can do anything you can." Her mother laughed weakly, then winced. "Wear the blouse in my closet. The blue one. It should look decent on you." "Should," Grace teased. "You'll be beautiful even in a sack." But Ethan Cole doesn't care about beauty. He cares about precision. Grace hugged her mother, careful not to press too hard. "I'll come back as soon as I can. Rest, please." She dressed quickly in her mother's blouse and skirt. They were slightly big on her, but she adjusted them the best she could. She brushed her hair, tied it into a low ponytail, and looked at her reflection. She didn't look like a corporate assistant. She looked like a girl pretending to be one. But she had no choice. She grabbed her mother's ID badge, kissed her mother's forehead, and stepped outside. Downtown was overwhelming, especially for someone who grew up miles away in a quieter neighborhood. The skyscrapers rose like giants. The streets buzzed with expensive cars and confident people in tailored suits. Grace felt like she didn't belong, and nothing was more intimidating than the building before her. A glass tower with the golden emblem Cole Enterprises shining proudly under the morning light. She exhaled slowly. "For Mom," she whispered. She walked inside, greeted by the grandeur of a marble floor, shimmering glass lamps, and a massive lobby screen displaying Ethan Cole's face in an advertisement. Sharp jaw, intense eyes, presence commanding even through a screen. She swallowed hard and headed for the elevator. When the doors opened on the 42nd floor, conversations halted. Every head turned. Some looked confused, others annoyed. A woman in perfect makeup and a designer dress approached her. "Can I help you?" she asked with a cold smile. "I'm filling in for my mother today," Grace said politely. "Mrs. Lawson." The woman blinked. "Filling in? Without prior approval?" Grace tried to explain. "She's really sick. She can't move." A door behind them clicked open. Everyone froze. Ethan Cole stepped out. He was even more intimidating in person. Tall, broad-shouldered, dark hair neatly styled, eyes sharp like he could see straight through any lie. His suit was flawless, his posture perfect, his presence radiating authority. His eyes found Grace. He didn't recognize her, of course, but he recognized the badge in her hand. "Where is Mrs. Lawson?" he asked, voice deep and clipped. "She's sick, sir," Grace replied. "I came instead, just for today. She can't afford to lose her job." Ethan's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Something Grace didn't understand. You came instead? He repeated. Yes, sir. What makes you think you can do her work? I don't think I can do it perfectly, she admitted honestly. But I will try. Silence. Cold, heavy silence. Then, unexpectedly, fine, Ethan said. Follow me. The receptionist's jaw dropped. Employees exchanged shocked glances. No one expected this man, the one known for firing assistants for breathing too loudly, to accept an untrained girl. Grace hurried after him into his huge corner office. Sit at that desk, Ethan ordered. You'll take calls, manage my schedule, screen my emails, and follow my instructions carefully. Yes, sir. Don't interrupt me unless you must. Don't be late. Don't misplace anything. Grace nodded quickly. Understood. He paused, studying her. Your mother is good, he said. Very good. I don't tolerate incompetence. Grace felt her heart drop. I'll do my best. We'll see, he murmured, turning to his computer. The morning was brutal. The phone rang nonstop. Grace stuttered on calls. She mixed up two names when transferring an important client. She printed the wrong report and had to find the correct version in a cluttered folder system. Every mistake earned a glare from Ethan. A look so sharp it made her feel like hiding under the desk. Once, while handing him his coffee, her hand shook and she spilled a few drops on his desk. Her heart stopped. I'm so sorry. Ethan glanced at the spill, then at her trembling hands. Instead of exploding, he simply handed her a tissue. Be careful, he said curtly. Yes, sir. She expected him to yell, but he didn't, and she wasn't sure what to make of that. Around noon, she overheard whispers from other employees. That girl is so out of place. She's slowing him down. He should have fired her already. She must think her mother's illness is an excuse. Grace's throat tightened. She escaped to the restroom and splashed water on her face. She stared at her reflection. Eyes glossy, shoulders slumped. You can do this, she whispered to herself. Just finish today. When she returned to the office, Ethan walked out at the same moment. He stopped, eyes narrowing. Were you crying? He asked. Grace shook her head. I'm fine. It won't happen again. Ethan studied her face. If you're overwhelmed, you should say so. I don't want to complain, Grace said softly. Your eyes say otherwise. Grace flinched and looked away. I'll get back to work. She tried to walk past him, but he gently touched her arm. Grace. She froze. You're trying. That matters more than perfection. Grace blinked. You think so? You're not your mother, but you're learning. And you care. His voice lowered, surprisingly gentle. I've had assistants who didn't last a day even with perfect knowledge. Her chest warmed at his unexpected encouragement. Thank you, sir. Ethan, he corrected. Her eyes snapped up. What? You can call me Ethan. At least when we're not surrounded by the entire staff. She nodded slowly. Okay, Ethan. Something shifted in his expression. He looked away quickly, clearing his throat. Get back to work, he muttered. Grace smiled for the first time all day. By the third day, things began to change. Ethan started showing her how to handle certain tasks more efficiently. He stood behind her, close enough that she felt the warmth of his presence, as he reached over to guide her fingers on the keyboard. Don't look at the letters, he said softly. Feel the rhythm. Grace's breath hitched. She focused on the keys, but it was impossible to ignore how near he was. Better, he murmured. She pulled her hands back quickly when he stepped away, cheeks blazing. Thank you, she said quietly. Ethan nodded, but even as Grace improved, the hostility around her grew. Some workers rolled their eyes whenever she passed. Others whispered spiteful comments. Just because he tolerates her doesn't mean she belongs here. She's nothing special. She's probably flirting to stay employed. Grace kept her head down, trying to ignore them, but their words stung. One afternoon, when she went to make copies, she overheard two women from accounting. She's pathetic. Look at her clothes. She's poor. It's obvious. I bet Ethan just feels sorry for her. Grace's chest tightened painfully. Later, while handing Ethan a file, he noticed her red eyes again. Who upset you? He asked. No one, she lied. He raised a brow. I know when someone lies to me. She forced a smile. I'll handle it. Ethan didn't look convinced, but he let it go. That evening, Grace received a phone call from the hospital. Her mother's condition had worsened. Grace didn't think. She ran out of the office without explanation, tears streaming down her face. She reached the hospital breathless and rushed to her mother's side. Monitors beeped as nurses moved around. Her mother lay unconscious, paler than ever. Mom, Grace whispered, holding her hand. Please stay with me. She didn't hear the footsteps behind her until Ethan spoke quietly. Grace. She turned, surprised. He was standing there in his suit, looking completely out of place in the hospital hallway. How did you? You ran out of the office in tears, he said. Of course I followed. Grace covered her face with her hands.
I'm sorry.
I didn't mean to cause trouble. This isn't trouble. She shook her head, breaking down. I don't want to lose her. Ethan stepped closer but didn't touch her, respecting her space. She's in good hands. Grace looked at him helplessly. We can't afford her treatment. Ethan didn't answer. Instead, he walked toward the doctor's office. She watched him exchange quiet words with the physician. The doctor's eyebrows rose. Then he nodded. When Ethan returned, he simply said, She'll get the care she needs. Grace frowned. But the cost. Don't worry about the cost. Her eyes widened, realization dawning. You paid, Grace whispered. He didn't confirm it, but he didn't deny it either. She covered her mouth with her hand as tears streamed down her face again. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. He stood beside her for a long moment, both of them watching her mother breathe. But their peace didn't last. The next morning, Grace was summoned to a conference room. HR, the senior staff, and a particularly bitter manager waited for her. Grace Lawson, the manager began coldly. We have concerns about your behavior and your relationship with Mr. Cole. Grace's stomach dropped. What? I haven't done anything. You left work without permission. You've been receiving special treatment. You've disrupted workplace balance. The words hit her like punches. That's not true, she said. We believe terminating your mother's employment and removing you immediately may be necessary. Grace felt her legs weaken. Please, she whispered, don't fire my mother. She's sick. Our decision is. A voice cut through the room like thunder. It won't be necessary. Everyone turned. Ethan stood at the doorway, expression stone cold. And he looked furious. Mr. Cole, the manager began. Not another word, Ethan said sharply. Grace has done nothing wrong. But sir, if anyone here thinks they can punish her or her mother for circumstances beyond their control, Ethan continued, they're welcome to hand me their resignation today. Silence. No one dared speak. Ethan turned to Grace. Come with me. Her heart pounded as she followed him out, leaving behind a room of terrified employees. Once inside his office, she broke down completely. I'm causing trouble for you, she said through tears. I shouldn't be here. I'm making things worse. I should resign. No, Ethan said. She looked up at him, eyes shining. You can't leave, he said gently. I won't let you. Why? She whispered. Ethan exhaled deeply, looking at the floor, then at the window, then finally at her, like he was gathering the strength to say something difficult. Because I care about you, Grace. She froze. Ethan stepped closer. You came into my office as your mother's replacement, but you became the only person I look forward to seeing every day. Grace's breath caught. You matter to me, he said, voice trembling in a way she never thought possible. He held out his hand. Come with me. He led her to the rooftop, where the city stretched endlessly below them. The wind carried the quiet tension between them, soft and electric. Ethan turned to her, eyes unguarded for the first time. I don't want you to leave, he said. Not now. Not ever. Grace's heart pounded so hard she thought he could hear it. She reached for his hand. He held hers tightly, as if he never wanted to let go. Ethan held Grace's hand as if it were something fragile, something precious. Neither of them spoke at first. They simply stood on the rooftop, the city stretching endlessly around them, skyscrapers glowing beneath the soft evening sky. Grace felt the cold wind brush against her cheeks, but the warmth of his hand grounded her, steadying her racing heart. Ethan, she finally whispered, why me? He seemed almost afraid to answer. The billionaire CEO who intimidated thousands suddenly looked like a man unsure of his own voice. You walked into my office with fear in your eyes, he began quietly. But you stayed. You tried. And every day, you proved you have more strength than people twice your age with 10 times your experience. Grace's breath hitched. I didn't expect someone like you, he continued. Someone honest. Someone who actually cares about others. Someone who makes this place feel less empty. He struggled for a moment, jaw tightening as if emotions were fighting to stay contained. I've built companies, conquered industries, faced ruthless competitors, he said. But I still can't explain why losing you, even before I ever had you, terrifies me. Grace felt a tear slip down her cheek. Ethan saw it and stepped closer, brushing it away with his thumb. His touch was careful, almost hesitant, as if he feared he might hurt her. You don't have to be afraid of me, he said softly. I'm not, Grace whispered. I'm only afraid of losing the things I care about. Ethan's eyes softened even more. You won't lose me, he said. I won't let you. Grace's lips parted, breath unsteady, her heart pounding at the depth of his words. He took her hand again, lifting it slowly to his lips. Grace's eyes widened, her breath catching as he pressed the faintest kiss to her knuckles. I care about you, he repeated in a whisper. More than you know. The rooftop was quiet, the entire world fading away until only they remained. And for the first time in her life, Grace felt seen, truly seen. The next morning, the office operated under an unusual tension. Whispers followed Grace through the halls. Not mocking this time, but stunned, curious, unsure. Everyone had witnessed Ethan's fury at the HR meeting. No one had ever seen the CEO defend someone with such intensity. Grace tried to ignore the stares as she walked to her desk. Ethan's door opened the moment she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. He stepped out, mask of cold professionalism back in place, though something in his eyes warmed when they landed on her. Good morning, he said. Good morning, she replied gently. He cleared his throat. Inside, we have work. Grace tried not to smile as she followed him. Inside the office, Ethan closed the door behind them. He approached his desk, picked up a stack of files and handed them to her. This is today's agenda, he said in his typical business tone. But before she could turn to leave, his hand brushed hers, intentional this time, lingering just a second too long. Grace looked up. Ethan wasn't smiling, but his eyes told her everything his mouth refused to. Don't let anyone bother you, he said quietly. I won't, she answered. He nodded, satisfied. For the rest of the morning, Grace handled calls, scheduled appointments, and answered emails with newfound confidence. Ethan's presence didn't intimidate her anymore, steadied her. During lunch break, some of the same employees who had mocked her before avoided eye contact. One even mustered a stiff nod of respect. Grace didn't need their approval. She just needed her mother to recover. Still, the shift in atmosphere made her chest feel lighter. After work, Ethan approached her desk. I'll drive you home, he said. Grace hesitated. Ethan, people might get the wrong idea. They already have, he said bluntly. And I don't care. Her cheeks warmed. I just don't want to cause trouble for you. You're not trouble, Ethan said. Let me take you. Grace finally nodded. The ride was quiet at first. Ethan kept one hand on the wheel, the other tapping lightly against his thigh, a rare show of nerves. Grace studied him. You're different today. Am I? He asked. Yes, you're softer. He shot her a glance. Only with you. Her heart skipped. When they reached her building, Ethan stepped out and opened her door, ignoring her protests. You don't have to. I want to, he said simply. He walked her to the entrance. How's your mother? He asked. She's doing better, Grace said. The doctor said the stress caused a relapse, but the treatment is helping. Ethan nodded, relief flickering across his face. I'll visit her soon, he said. Grace blinked. You want to visit? Is that a problem? No, she said quickly. I'd like that. He nodded, his expression softening. Good night, Grace. Good night, Ethan. He hesitated, then brushed his hand against hers, a silent promise before walking away. Grace watched him go, her heart full. The next few weeks were transformative. Grace grew more confident in her role. She learned to anticipate Ethan's needs before he spoke. She handled clients with poise and patience. Her typing became fast and clean. Her filing system impressed even the most seasoned managers. Ethan watched her with a quiet pride he never voiced in public. Sometimes, during breaks, he would walk to her desk and ask subtle questions. Have you eaten? Did you sleep well? You seem tired. Are you okay? Little things, but they meant everything to her. Employees began treating her differently too. Some apologized for their earlier harshness. Others asked her for help navigating Ethan's unpredictable moods. One afternoon, a coworker approached her nervously. I shouldn't have judged you, she said.
I'm sorry.
Grace smiled warmly. It's okay. She didn't hold grudges. Life was too heavy already. Meanwhile, Ethan found excuses to spend time with her after work, driving her home, talking to her about his day, even stopping by the apartment once to drop off groceries in case her mother needed healthy food. Grace was touched by the gesture. Her mother, regaining strength, noticed everything immediately. So, she said one evening as Grace adjusted her pillows, you and your boss seem close. Grace flushed. Mom, please. Her mother smiled knowingly. He likes you. Grace looked away. He's just being kind. No, her mother said gently. He's protecting you, supporting you. That's not kindness, Grace. That's care. Grace didn't respond, but her heart fluttered. A week later, Grace found herself in Ethan's office going through his calendar. He stepped out of a meeting, loosened his tie, and sank into his chair with a sigh, a rare show of exhaustion. Tough day? She asked. Ridiculous day, he muttered. Grace hesitated before stepping closer. Can I help? Ethan looked at her, eyes softening in a way they never did for anyone else. You already do, he said. He reached up and gently touched her hand, thumb brushing against her palm. The gesture was quiet, subtle, but intimate. Grace's breath caught. Someone knocked on the door, and Ethan immediately pulled his hand back, returning to his composed, professional persona. Yes, he called. The CFO entered, unaware of what he had interrupted. Grace returned to her desk, heart pounding. Tension soft, growing, undeniable, wrapped around them in the days that followed. Every shared glance held a question. Every accidental touch left a spark. Every conversation lingered just a little too long, and still neither said it aloud. Not yet. One evening, as the office emptied, Ethan approached her desk. I want to show you something, he said. Grace blinked. What is it? He didn't answer. He simply gestured for her to follow. They rode the elevator down, past the lobby to the basement parking lot. Ethan led her to a sleek black car, not his usual company vehicle. This is mine, he said quietly. My personal car. I don't share rides in it. Grace felt a strange flutter in her chest. Where are we going? She asked. You'll see. He drove them through the city, past tall buildings and busy streets, until they reached a quiet viewpoint overlooking the skyline. The lights were mesmerizing, reflecting off the river like scattered diamonds. I come here when I need to think, he said softly. It's beautiful, Grace whispered. So are you. Her heart skipped violently. She turned to him. Ethan. He swallowed hard. Grace, I brought you here because I needed to tell you something without the noise of the office. Without anyone watching. She waited, breath tight in her chest. He ran a hand through his hair, a rare sign of nerves. I'm falling for you, he confessed. Grace froze. I tried not to, he admitted. I tried to keep things professional. I tried to ignore it. But every day, you walk into my office and make it harder. Grace's lips parted in shock. You're kind, he said. You're strong. You're patient. You're everything I didn't know I needed. Ethan slowly reached for her hand. And I'm tired of pretending that I don't feel something real. Grace felt tears gathering. Ethan, she whispered. I feel it too. He exhaled shakily, relief washing over his face. He leaned forward slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. Grace closed the distance, pressing her lips softly to his. Ethan deepened the kiss just slightly, one hand cupping her cheek, the other holding her steady. It was gentle, warm, careful. When they pulled apart, Grace's heart felt lighter than it had in years. Ethan rested his forehead against hers. You have no idea how long I've wanted to do that. Grace laughed softly. Then do it again. He did. The next morning, they arrived at the office separately, but their glances across the room held a new intimacy. Ethan looked calmer, lighter. Even his employees noticed the shift. Grace worked with renewed confidence, knowing she wasn't alone anymore, knowing the man behind the cold reputation had chosen her. That afternoon, Ethan asked her to join him in the conference room to go over reports. They sat side by side, shoulders touching now and then, quiet electricity running between them. At one point, Grace looked up at him. People will talk, she said softly. Let them, Ethan replied. But it might affect your reputation. He shook his head. My reputation has survived worse than falling in love. Grace stilled. In love? She whispered. Ethan paused, but didn't take it back. Yes, he said firmly. In love. Grace felt her chest swell. She didn't know how she ended up sitting in this building, wearing her mother's clothes, taking her mother's job. But she knew one thing. Everything changed the moment she walked into Ethan Cole's office. Grace's mother recovered fully 2 weeks later. Ethan insisted on driving them home from the hospital. Her mother tried to argue, but Ethan brushed her protests aside with a rare smile. You raised an extraordinary daughter, he told her mother quietly. Grace's face burned. Her mother glanced between them with a knowing expression. I can see that. Over the next few days, Grace and Ethan settled into a gentle rhythm, working together by day, talking softly during lunch, sharing rides home when no one watched. Their relationship didn't need grand gestures. It grew from shared moments, stolen glances, whispered reassurances, and quiet companionship. Grace finally felt like she belonged somewhere, not because of the job, but because of Ethan. One evening, long after everyone had left the office, Ethan appeared at her desk. Finished? He asked gently. Yes, Grace said, gathering her things. He held out his hand. Come. Grace took it. They stepped into the elevator and rode to the rooftop, the place where everything had first cracked open. The night sky stretched above them, full of stars. Ethan turned to her. Grace, he said softly. You changed everything. She smiled. You changed me too. He reached for her cheek, stroking it lightly. I want you in my life, he said. Not just in my office. Grace's chest tightened. Are you sure? I've never been more sure about anything. He leaned in and kissed her again. Slow, deep, full of every quiet emotion he never knew how to express. When he pulled away, he whispered, Ready to go home? Grace nodded, tears in her eyes and love blooming in her chest. Yes. Ethan intertwined his fingers with hers and guided her toward the elevator. As the doors closed behind them, Grace realized something. She had walked into Ethan's office as a desperate replacement, but she was leaving it as the woman he had quietly, irrevocably fallen for. and their lives, hers, his, her mother's, would never be the same again. If you enjoyed this love story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps me bring you even more stories. Thank you for watching.